Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to your weekly dose of celestial goodness. As always, thank you for joining me in this space and on this journey. I really appreciate your presence here. So last week, we talked about forgiveness, and I received some really wonderful feedback from some of you about that. So thank you not only for watching, but also for reading the blog, but really also for thinking deeply about the message. I do appreciate that. Thank you. So, when I was in college and discovered the wild world of going out and partying with my friends, I fell in love with a song called Closing Time by a group called Semisonic. This is one of those songs that literally signifies that the night or the morning is over. Bars play it, I think, to say, all right, pack it up, it's time to go. And people played it at house parties, I think, as a way to kick people out of the house. I remember singing it, or rather mumbling it, while stumbling back to the dorm on very cold Wisconsin nights and mornings. There was a line from the song that really stood out for me, and it has stayed with me, and it remains in my conscious mind to this day. It says, "Closing time. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." And I can't tell you how many times now I've literally lived this line. I've discovered that life is a series of endings and beginnings and endings and new beginnings. Sometimes we have time to prepare for an ending, and sometimes they catch us completely unaware. Sometimes we're yearning for a new beginning, but we're really not quite sure when it will come. Sometimes we don't even realize when a new beginning has started. We just fall into it. But sometimes we are aware and relieved and delighted that something has either come to an end or that something has begun. If the seasons are any indication, everything is in constant motion. We have spring, summer, fall, and winter, and then we go back to spring again. Endings and beginnings are a natural part of life and of nature. Lao Tzu said, "Life is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. Don't resist them. That only creates sorrow. Let reality be reality. Let things flow naturally forward in whatever way they like." In the tarot, this is actually reminiscent of the Tower card, which in its traditional depiction shows a tower burning. The tower had been struck by lightning, signifying upheaval and unexpected change. There are two people falling from the tower. One person is seen reluctantly falling in a way that indicates that they were not ready for change. And in their situation, they probably were forced out of the tower. The way that the other person is falling seems to indicate that they may have just jumped willingly because they know they have to get out of that situation or out of the tower, and that the change is inevitable. One more modern day description of the Tower card comes from Biddy Tarot and says, "The lightning represents a sudden surge of energy and insight that leads to breakthrough or revelation. It enters via the top of the building and knocks off the crown." There's also a crown in the imagery, symbolizing energy flowing down from the universe through the crown chakra. The people are desperate to escape from the burning building, not knowing what awaits them when they fall. Around them are 22 flames representing the 12 signs of the zodiac and 10 points of the tree of life, suggesting that even in times of disaster, there's always divine intervention. This description provides a reminder that is so important to remember, especially when change proves to be stressful. There is always divine help. I believe that the cosmos are always moving and shifting in ways that ultimately serve to support us, but some of the transits admittedly can really add a jolt to our lives. One of the cosmic happenings that instigates major endings and beginnings in our lives are eclipses. I'm sure that if you've been on this planet for more than a year, you've probably heard mention of an eclipse. In ancient times, people saw eclipses as bad omens, foretelling everything from poor harvests to even the apocalypse. With advancements in science, astronomy, and astrology, we have a better understanding of the energy that comes with an eclipse, and we know that they often speed up changes in our life. As a side note, we're having this conversation now because in the weeks ahead, the cosmos are actually setting the stage for 2021 with some very huge transits. Some that I think will actually change the world in very profound ways. One thing that's setting the way for what many astrologers are calling a new day in our generational and collective consciousness is the grand conjunction between the two biggest planets in our solar system, the cosmic gurus as they're called, Jupiter and Saturn. This conjunction will take place on the winter solstice, which is December 21st, in the sign of Aquarius. One of the events that is actually setting the stage for that transit is a total solar eclipse next week, or this week if you're watching now, in the sign of Sagittarius. This eclipse actually hits pretty close to home for me because my birthday is the day after the eclipse, and I was born at the same degree in Sagittarius where this eclipse is falling. This won't just impact me, but also my birthday twins. So if you're watching, happy birthday. You guys know who you are. I saw that the eclipse was coming because I always read astrology things, and intuitively I felt it was a big one. I can consciously recall the eclipses of 2017. Those were in the sign of Leo, my rising sign, and it really, really shook up my world. Now, a lot of this may sound like a foreign language to you, so if you have any questions at all, please reach out. I'm happy to help answer them. My email for this channel and blog I will put in the description below, but it's also just celestialgoodness1111@gmail.com. And I will probably make a supplementary video on astrology in the coming weeks, just to provide you with some basics. So, I've been interested in astrology since I was at least 12. It is one of my hobbies. Not a week goes by where I'm not listening to something or reading something astrological. And up until recently, I was actually afraid to call myself anything more than an amateur. But that's really just me being very truly modest. So I will also add that true to my Sagittarian nature, I feel that there's always more to learn. I love learning about the world, about people, and I especially love the cosmos and the mysteries of this great universe. So, back to eclipses, because that's what this video is about. So what is an eclipse? There's a scientific definition of eclipse, and then there's what I call the astrological definition. According to NASA, an eclipse takes place when one heavenly body, such as a moon or a planet, moves into the shadow of another heavenly body, and that shadow is called the umbra. There are two types of eclipses on Earth, an eclipse of the moon and an eclipse of the sun. All lunar eclipses happen at a full moon, and all solar eclipses happen at a new moon. During a lunar eclipse, Earth moves between the sun and the moon. When this happens, Earth actually blocks the sunlight that normally is reflected by the moon. The sunlight is what actually causes the moon to shine. Instead of hitting the moon's surface, Earth's shadow falls on it. And then this is essentially a lunar eclipse, an eclipse of the moon. Like I said, a lunar eclipse can only happen when there's a full moon. Now, sometimes we have a situation where the moon is orbiting Earth and it moves between the sun and Earth. When this happens, the moon blocks the light of the sun from reaching Earth. This causes an eclipse of the sun, or solar eclipse. During a solar eclipse, the moon casts a shadow onto Earth. You can have a total eclipse, an annular eclipse, or what's called a partial eclipse. So that's just a brief scientific primer on eclipses. Now, an astrological definition that I really like are by astrologers Eliza Kelly Farricker and Sophie St. Thomas. You can follow Eliza on Instagram. She's really great. And this definition says, eclipses are dynamic cosmic occurrences that activate the lunar nodes. Simply put, the moon glides across an elliptical that is constantly rotating around the zodiac. The highest and lowest points of this orbit correspond with what are known as your lunar nodes, and that appears in our birth charts as what's called the south and north nodes. The south and north nodes, often referred to as the nodes of fate, symbolize our past and present, our karmic pathway. Accordingly, eclipses activate these nodes within our birth chart, illuminating our destiny. So, eclipses act like little destiny activation checkpoints in your birth chart. And eclipses are actually pretty frequent. They occur approximately every 6 months, and they happen in groups of 2 or 3. We refer to the transits of eclipses as an eclipse cycle. An eclipse cycle takes place when eclipses in a series are separated by a certain interval of time. This happens when the orbital motion of the bodies form, repeating a harmonic pattern. A particular instance is called the Saros, and that's a more complex conversation that we're not going to get into, but you can look it up because it's pretty fascinating. People have been tracking eclipses for a very, very long time. There's a lot of data and information out about when they fell and the signs that they're in. It's really fascinating. But with the Saros, this results in a repetition of a solar or lunar eclipse every 6,585.3 days, or a little over 18 years. So you can think of 18-year cycles of your life as also being very important. Eclipses also occur in opposite signs. Within the zodiac, there are 12 signs, and we can break the zodiac down further into what's called polarities. This is a sign and then its opposite sign on the zodiac. So we have Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac, which is the sign of self. Its opposite sign is the 7th sign, Libra, which is the sign of partnership. Taurus is the sign of personal belongings. Its opposite is Scorpio, the sign of legacies and shared possessions. Then we have Gemini, the sign of self-expression. Its opposite is Sagittarius, the sign of philosophy, higher thinking, of expression on a wider scale. Then we have Cancer, the sign of home life. opposite Capricorn, the sign of public life. Leo, the sign of personal pleasure and creativity, opposite Aquarius, the sign of hopes and ideals on a large scale. We have Virgo, which rules the tools and techniques for daily life, opposite Pisces, which rules the tools for our spiritual life. So the last series of eclipses were in the sign of Cancer with its opposite Capricorn, and vice versa. This year, we had a shift of the eclipses into the signs of Gemini and Sagittarius. And on November 30th, we had a lunar eclipse in the sign of Gemini. As you remember, this occurred by a full moon. And now on the 14th of December, we're having a solar eclipse in Sagittarius by a new moon. If in your own chart you have the presence of the sign of the actual eclipse, you may be more impacted. Solar eclipses impact us in the way that they correspond with new beginnings and unexpected opportunities. Lunar eclipses help us realize the external implications of these shifts, our internal shifts. What are your thoughts on a new beginning? How are you processing that? Eclipses impact everyone differently because we all have different natal charts, and ultimately your sign is impacted differently. Some eclipses may impact you, and others probably you won't notice anything. The eclipse on the 14th, like I said, is in the sign of Sagittarius, and it's likely that other mutable signs, and that's something for the astrological video, but they're Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, and Sagittarius are known as mutable signs. These signs may feel affected and impacted in some area of your life. Another very important point is that eclipse energy is energy that you might feel immediately, or it might unfold over a 6-month period, or sometimes even a little bit longer. If you would like to look up your natal chart, I'm going to drop the link for astro.com, which is a really great resource. I'll also put the link because I found a really great resource for helping you to find out where the eclipse is transiting in your own natal chart. That's super useful because if you know the house that it's transiting through, that can tell you what area of your life might actually be most impacted. I think it's very useful to know this information, and I think that it can help you to prepare for certain things that may actually unfold in your life. After the August 2017 eclipse, and I did make my family drive to South Carolina with me to see the endpoint because it was a total eclipse. It was absolutely amazing, and just really, if you ever have the opportunity to witness an eclipse, do it. But with that eclipse, a lot shifted in my own life, and the energy moved very quickly. Within 6 months of that eclipse, I'd been in a car accident that forced me to get a new car and actually release some old energy. I traveled for 5 weeks doing some really intense, what I would call soul healing. I met my current partner, I received a promotion, and really when I look back at past moments of eclipses, I can actually connect them to really major moments in my own life. So that can be very intense, but eclipses do speed things up in your world. And it's not only just your world, but the entire world. The whole world is changing. So all of this is really to say, change happens, but I think if you're cognizant of that fact, and you're aware and present and prepared, you're better equipped to handle endings and to embrace beginnings. You won't always be prepared for change, and that's okay. Just take things one step at a time, one day at a time, one moment at a time. I think that this quote from The Curious Case of Benjamin Button is really perfect for dealing with change. For what it's worth, it's never too late, or in my case, too early to be whoever you want to be. There's no time limit. Stop whenever you want. You can change or stay the same. There's no rules to this thing. We can make the best or the worst of it. I hope you make the best of it. And I hope you see things that startle you. I hope you feel things that you've never felt before. I hope you meet people with a different point of view. I hope you live a life you're proud of. If you find that you're not, I hope you have the courage to start all over again. This transit also prepares us for the grand conjunction on the 21st of December, the solstice, which is a change in sign and season. I'll talk about this in another video and explain, is this the age of Aquarius? Really, all of this is saying that what we already know to be true. Our world has changed and is changing. The question is, what role will we play in this? How can we help ourselves to not only live the best life that we can with the tools that we have, but also visualize and help to create the world that we want to see? Stay tuned. So, I hope that you found this video informative, and if you're liking these videos, please continue to like, subscribe, share, and comment. I respond to them. Even if I'm a little late, sometimes I will do it, I promise. Thank you. May the stars shine so brightly over your week. It's my birthday week, so I'm going to give you a little extra burst of good vibes and love. And just really my deepest appreciation for being here, for listening, and for soaking up this information. Thank you so much. Have a great week.